Hello, it's Sean from God's Own Scale podcast. This is an experiment in video making, which I'll call God's Own Scale TV, episode 1. The production values will be nothing, really, will be nil. I just wanted to try and show you how easy it is to paint these little fellas. Now, painting 6mm figures in front of a camera, or sorry, with a camera in between me and the actual figures, is going to be challenging. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I don't know how this will work. What I wanted to show really was how quick it is to paint these. Now, on this tray in front of you, you can see, well, there's a range of stuff here actually. Here are my figures I've still yet to send to Pear for the 6mm charity project. Today is really the first day I've felt human in about 4 or 5 days. I've been down with something akin to norovirus, I think. Certainly not coronavirus. I was tested for that and negative, but yeah. So these are the figures, the Clarkline Regiment for the Densui Army. I've also got on here, and you can see I've already made a start on these. These are militia for the AWI, all Baccus figures. What else have we got here? We've got a finished unit or finished brigade of Union. In fact, there's 2 finished brigades of Union and a finished brigade of Rebs. Well, finished in the sense that the painting's done. They aren't on the bases yet. There we go. But I really just wanted to show how quickly you can paint these. This video, other than me rambling now, or the painting, shouldn't take much longer than 25 minutes. I think I can get these done to this standard in 25 minutes. So I've followed the Per Broden patented method of undercoating. Now, I've made a little mistake here. The grey that I used for these was a little bit too dark, because the purpose is that it's a grey undercoat. In fact, you can see the difference there. This Reb unit is the normal grey that I'd use, and I went with a slightly darker grey for the Union. Focusing is a real issue, sorry, particularly when they're so dark. And then I have a mix, a wash mix, which is, goodness knows, all sorts of chemicals in there, with bits of brown and black paint, which is a very thin wash. I've got something here to show you, but this is actually over a white undercoat, because these are Napoleonic Austrians. But you can see the colour of the wash there and how thin it is. In fact, you see it on these American War of Independence militia. These are over a tan undercoat. This is another little experiment, probably a little bit too light. I do like tinkering around. These are Napoleonic Grenzers, which were primarily in a brown coat and been sprayed with Army Painter leather paint. Leather brown paint, and then given the same wash. So to rectify the fact that these have come out so dark with the darker grey and then the wash on top of it, I have just given these figures that I'm going to paint today it's so difficult to see them. I've just given them a slight dry brush in grey. But anyway, the colours we're going to use ultramarine blue from the Army Painter for the Union jacket. We are going to use electric blue for the pants. We are going to use fur brown for the muskets. We are going to use plate mail metal for the barrels of the muskets and the water canteen. The only real detail work is going to be a white strap for that water canteen, which will be interesting actually to see how I can get that done on this camera. And then Army Painted Barbarian flesh, followed by Talent in a little jar, Winsor & Newton nut ink. Let's see, so, and that is pretty much in the order that I'm going to be using it. So there's actually only 7 or 6 painted colours and then a wash. Actually, sorry, one of the last things will be a bit of red, which will be the sash on the officer and some detailing on the drum. And that will probably go at that point in the painting process. I'm not saying that this is how I do it all the time. I certainly aren't as organised as this to have my paints lined up like this for every painting project. It's probably a good thing to do because particularly if you're speed painting or batch painting, and in truth I'd probably paint two or three of these lollipop sticks. I get these off Amazon by the 100. It's far cheaper than buying it from Poundland. I think there's 100 in there. I've got some blue tack that I stick them down on prior to spraying. And the blue tack, there's a big blob of it here. It's got a bit of paint in it, but it's entirely reusable after it's been sprayed. It's not a problem at all. And it's just such a quick way of getting your figures prepped, particularly 6mm. This is all 6mm Baccus figures that I'm showing you at the moment. I paint lots of things. For instance, there's this monster here from the Hellboy board game by Mantic Games. There's this Corporation Trooper from Mantic Games for their skirmish game Dead Zone. I'm currently in the middle of a large commission painting 15mm Austrian Napoleonics from Lancashire Games, using different methods of painting for each of these, and it's about using the right tools and the right techniques. I think for the job is the best way to describe it. So where are we? We're about 9 minutes into this video, and let me just have a little. It's probably a bit too close. Yeah, I think I can probably get this done. Right, okay, so let's go. And I'll be using one brush probably throughout the whole. Actually, for the wash I'll use something different, but this is a Army Painter Wargamer character brush. I have to say I'm using a hell of a lot of these brushes, which are Royal and Langnickel brushes, which come in packs of about 10 or 12. You get various sizes. But I tell you what, for the price of probably 2 army painter brushes, I can get 10 of these, and they are absolutely fine. If, listen, you're not going to be able to paint Golden Demon or award-winning figures, but for tabletop quality, these are practically disposable brushes. You know, they cost pence. You get them off Amazon. Royal and Langnickel. This blue-handled version for me is the best. I've got dozens of them. I've just swapped over to them, having seen them used on a YouTube channel called and the name has entirely escaped me, which is really embarrassing. But I'll try and put it up in the YouTube link. Anyway, enough rambling. I have some paper. I have this old bit of plastic here with a cocktail stick stuck to it as my palette. I have some water. It's not very clean. Never very precious over clean water, to be honest. But anyway, give this a good shake and a bit onto the. That's far too much, actually. I don't know if you can see that. That's far too much. That I'm going to be needing. This is really tricky. Right. Let's just see. That's a better angle. That's a better position for the old tripod. So I think what I'll do is whilst I'll keep the figure in view as I'm painting, or the strip in view as I'm painting, I'll bring it up to the camera for a better idea of what's going on, and I'll just talk you through the whole process. So Mr. 6mm himself, Per Broden, has painted, oh my goodness, well, I would suggest, I don't know if he can count how many of these he's painted. What time did we start? Let's say 12:30. And his website at roller1.com is certainly the best place for you to go to see how this work is done in a more professional manner than me. But the idea of the grey undercoat and then the wash over the top of it is that, as opposed to being a black undercoat, which is far too dark, and as I said, these have gone really too dark, to be honest, is that it creates depth on the figure and brings out the detail of the strapping, the belts, the undercuts, which then helps me. Now, as you can see, I'm really just dotting this blue in the appropriate places. Now, I'm really not being too careful about it because I want a suggestion of shade, I want a suggestion of depth, and it's about smoke and mirrors. So if you were, I mean, I'm holding this up here, but you'll never see the figure from that range. You'll see it more from this sort of range when it's on the table. And what I need is that illusion that what you're looking at is a nicely painted Union figure for the American Civil War. I don't need, I don't search for that perfectly painted figure that will, of a 6mm American Civil War figure, that will hold scrutiny when balanced on the end of your nose or under a microscope. That isn't the purpose of this in the slightest. The purpose is to paint, goodness me, hundreds of these, because I may have mentioned on the podcast, but for those that haven't listened to the podcast, last summer I bought the entire Order of Battle for Antietam to play Ultra Freedom with. If I can just, which, there we go, Ultra Freedom by Greg Wagman of Little Wars TV fame. So the scenario for Antietam in there is what I bought. The Order of Battle is what I bought. So if you check out the Little Wars TV YouTube channel, you'll see that game being refought on a 6x4 table at that magnificent clubhouse that Little Wars TV have access to. And you can hear in my chat with Greg, I think it's episode 4 maybe of the podcast, where he talks about how they gained access to that building, purchased it, renovated it, and turned it into what really must be one of the premier club buildings in the world, without shadow of a doubt. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit as I'm sticking this blue mostly in the right places. So it's a bit like the old Eric Morecambe. I'm playing all the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order. There you go. So that's sticking the blue on. It's the right blue, but it's not necessarily precisely in the right order, but that doesn't matter. It's about that illusion. So I want the illusion that there is a black strap and a belt across there. This figure's leaning a bit. I'm not quite sure what's happened to him. I'll straighten him up in due course. And certainly on the back, you may just be able to work out that there's the strap in there. Now, they had a lot of black leather equipment, the Union did, with the cartridge box. There was not a sack, sort of a pack that they carried that was black. It was a black belt. The peak of the forage cap, as opposed to kepi. I know kepi is often used, but it's more of a forage cap that they wore. That was black as well. I'm probably going a little bit slower than I'm intended to here, but as I'm talking, it is just distracting me somewhat, and it's relatively difficult to paint with a camera and tripod in between me and the intended target of the paint. But anyway, let's do it. Hopefully the end product, you'll see just how quick this whole thing is. I'm no Steven Spielberg, and I'm no Little Wars TV either, and I keep knocking the camera there. I do apologise about that. These Baccus figures are gorgeous. There are other 6mm manufacturers out there of very nice repute. If you like that sort of realistic proportioned 6mm figure, then I guess Heroics and Ross is one that you would look at. I mean, they're very spindly. I've got a huge stack of them that I was gifted some time ago. that were painted dozens of years ago. But I do prefer this more caricature look. So that's all the dark blue. Now I did have some of the light blue already on the palette, and you'll see how speedy this is, because this is really just putting a dot to each leg, and actually it brings, I'll just add a little bit of water so that's gone touch dry. By adding the light blue and really it's just a dab, I'm not even doing a brush stroke, I am putting the brush to the leg of the figure and that's sufficient for how long the leg is, which must be, I don't know, 2 mil long. And again, it's about neatness is important, so I don't want to be spilling over onto the coat or to the base less so, but certainly don't want to be spilling over onto the coat. But you can see just how quickly that one dab of the brush, it's not even a stroke, it's a dab, leaves the trouser leg, to all intents and purposes, done. So yeah, I prefer this chunkier, more caricatured style of figure. I just think it looks better. There's more presence, and that's an odd phrase to use for a 6mm figure, I appreciate, but there's more presence for the figure on the tabletop. And there is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a phrase I use regularly regarding 6mm. You're creating illusions through painting. So there you go, that is coat and legs done. So that's 2 paints down. Probably, what did we start on? 1240, something like that. So this is fur brown, which is going, again, I've put way too much on the palette there, but there you go. So for these, I do tend to hold the figures this way. I just find it easier to get the angle right to paint the musket, which is just a line. I always have to remind myself to go to the bottom, and this, for some reason, this particular stand of 4 figures is facing the different way to the others. Okay, what have I done there? Oh, that's right. Okay, so I've actually started on the back of these, but again, it's minimal brushwork, letting that undercoat of the lighter grey with the wash to sink into the darker recesses. It's letting that do probably 90% of the work. And another thing, and this is something I know that writers do. So writers will I'm sorry, I can't say this about all writers, but many writers, when they're knocking out a first draft of a book, will just type and not worry about spelling mistakes or slips of the keyboard. So if they make a mistake, they'll leave it, and because they're in the flow of actually getting the words on the page, the thought process is going at a million miles an hour, and they don't really want to interrupt that by hitting delete every few minutes because they've spelt a word wrong. And similar to that with painting, if I make a mistake here, I don't want to stop the flow or the zen or the moment of getting the paint onto the figure to correct a mistake. If I slip, it's very rare that I will immediately put brush down, have a look at it, see what I need to do to correct it, find the colour to correct it. I just want to carry on, because ultimately this standard figures will be one of 40. This is a brigade, so I've just slipped a little bit there. I don't know if you can see. Let's just show you this example. This guy here, I've just slipped a little bit onto his coat and strapping. It's debatable whether I'll do anything about that, because this is a brigade of infantry. It's going to represent about, I don't know, 1,500 men at the Battle of Antietam. There's going to be 44 other stands of Union infantry. I think it's 36 stands of Reb infantry. There's going to be a 6-foot table full of scenery, trees, roads, fences, houses. Now, I don't know where this brigade will end up going in that line of battle, but I doubt very much whether I'll notice that little slip come the heat of battle at Antietam. I may go back and repair that, but also remember that I will be putting a wash. Right, so this is the one tricky bit now. So it's going to be a little white line for the water canteen down the back. Now, do I really need to do this? This is one of the things that perhaps I could get away without doing, but I've been painting American Civil War miniatures for 30 odd years in scales from 2mm to 28mm, and I can't not put this white canteen strap on. I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things that I can't let go. I think what it does is just adds that little bit of lightness. And for the effort it takes, which is minimal, because again, I'm not being deadly careful with it, but for the reward outweighs the effort, if you understand what I mean. I think the reward that you get on, oh God, the reward that you get overall for this effort repays itself many times over. And it's really the one bit of careful painting that I need to do on these figures. Now, of course, these are uniform troops, and it's a pretty basic figure, isn't it? Yeah, it's a pretty basic uniform. I was talking to my mate Aid last night via Facebook, and we are doing a joint project of Napoleon. Now that white line there is probably too thick, but I'm hoping that come wash time that that will be corrected just through the wash. So we're doing a joint Baccus project, looking at doing 1809. So I have Austrians, he has the French, and I painted up a unit of Austrians last night, which again, Napoleonic Austrians in 6mm aren't the most taxing uniform. There's no shako cords for a start, which for any painter of Napoleonic figures in any scale is a win. And he was lamenting the fact that he got shako cords to paint, because we have gone for the 1809 campaign, which is really prior to the removal of those shako cords. Now, of course, he doesn't. I did say to him, do you have to paint them? These are 6mm figures. Who will notice if you just don't paint them? And he said, well, I'll notice now. I've made a bit of an error, and I've just compounded the error. But I'm moving on. I'm not worrying about it. Just move on. Let it go. I used to play a lot of golf, and there's a famous golf sports psychologist called Dr. Bob Rotella, who said to gain control you have to give up control. And that's about this, the mindfulness aspect, I think, of golfing, that if you think about things too much, then you just get stressed, you get tight, you don't swing well. It really does nothing for your game at all. So by giving up control, you loosen off, have a looser swing. Golf. Okay, so we're on to the, so by not worrying about that little mistake there, you might think I'm worried about it actually because I'm talking about it, but just explaining the point, by not worrying about that one mistake and just cracking on, then really once the magic formula of the nut brown does its work, I'm doubtful that it's going to bother me. Might bother you, in which case go back and sort it after you've done the painting. That's my tip. Don't do it now because you're in the flow. You know, there's, how many are there? There's 28 figures here that we're painting. It's a brigade of Union infantry. Don't know why I put that one stand the opposite way to every other stand, but there you go. It's a brigade of Union infantry. The Antietam scenario, as I've said before, that bit's bugging me, why that figure's leaning over. But the Union Army at Antietam in the Ultra Freedom scenario represents something like 75,000 men, something like that. So it's over 70,000 men. So Do I need to worry about that one guy whose strap looks a bit bodged? Do you? Do you really need to worry about it? I think. Oh yeah. So I'm just dotting the metal canteen in at the end of the white strap there, which I think I've forgotten to do it on these, but now this isn't a mistake, so I'm not correcting a mistake. I'm just going back and painting something that I've missed, which I think is different. I've got the same colour paint in my hand. I thought I'd started this process, but there you go, just dotting that in. And again, this is something that just adds that little bit of something different to what you're looking at on the figure. I'm not being careful about it at all. There we go. So where are we? 36 minutes in. I started, so I'm about 24 minutes, so I'm behind, but I don't think anybody's going to hold that against me, because although I've got 3 colours left, actually this colour goes in about 2 places. So I think they call this spot colours. Quite sure why it's called a spot colour, but there you go. So a bit of red around the drum and a red around the officer's sash. I did think actually a lot of these units would have some corps designation on top of the kepi, some of which was red. I'm just going to actually do that. Just there you go. It's just a suggestion. I think it was like a corps identity, a corps badge that it wore on top of the kepi. So we're onto the skin now, which is the last real colour on these guys. And this is pretty quick. It's again a bit like the trousers. It's just introducing the brush to the figure. I'm just touching. It's not a stroke. It's a touch. Now, whoever sculpted these 6mm figures did a marvellous job, because there are figures with moustaches and there are figures with beards. But guess what? I don't paint beards and moustaches. I let the wash create the suggestion that there are. There is facial hair there. So again, I don't get tied up in that sort of smaller detail. I was holding my breath slightly, because although really this is what, 3 dots, 1, 2, 3. I do just need to try and get this bit in the right place. So yeah, I don't sweat the smaller detail, because, and I'll go back to 2 things I've already said, but they bear repeating. One is that these will be, well, let's work it out, 44 times 28. I don't know, it's going on for 1,000 figures, isn't it? These are each of these is one of close on 1,000 figures. In actual fact, there'll be over 1,000 figures once I factor in artillery, cavalry and command figures. And so the one of over 1,000 figures. And if I was to paint moustaches on every figure that I've got a moustache, I probably wouldn't have finished a single unit by now. And secondly, as you'll see very shortly as I enter the last stages of the actual painting process, the nut brown ink covers up a host of errors and mistakes. Okay, so right, so I am just going to do a little bit more because, well, we're in 40 minutes in, so we're 28 minutes into the painting of 28 figures. So we're only just, we're only just hitting a minute. I've put way too much paint on the palette there. A minute a figure. If I said to you, you could paint these at the rate of, to a decent standard at the rate of a minute a figure, well, to paint 1,000 figures is 1,000 minutes. Just paint the, put a bit of gold on the old eagle at the top of the standard bearer there. I do sometimes just add a little touch or a suggestion of gold buttons and epaulets on the officer there at the top of his sword. Getting wrong there. Okay, never mind. Right. Okay. So last thing which you will have noticed, I just added that blue onto that drum there. I'm just gonna put that suggestion of chords on the drum. On the top of the drum now. I haven't done the sticks yet, but the wash is going to sort that out. So they are essentially now done. Get rid of that big brush. Sorry, get rid of that brush. And come to one of these. Again, I will use these for detail work. It's just I've got that on my painter brush to hand, but these are very good for washes. So here we go. Nut brown, do your work. Now, because these are acrylics, it's pretty much ready to go straight away. But let's just show you the before picture. I can't really get, there we go. So nothing very exciting. I appreciate it's union. Rebs take that bit longer because you want that non-uniform look. And they're pretty rough and ready. I appreciate that, but from here to here, you know, I don't really want you looking at the figures at this distance, really. I want you looking at them at this sort of distance, which say, yeah, they look like Union troops, but here we go. Brush, jar of magic. Load it up and just slap it on. So I tend to put it on a couple of stands at a time before starting just to work it around. Don't want too much pooling if possible. There we go, as quick as that. So just slap it on. A couple of stands at a time. Just give the brush a little dab and then and just work it around and let it do its job. I'm just struggling to see that figure where I cocked up a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. There we go. See the ink had just pooled on the eagle there, so I'll just wick that away. Turn them round. Slap it on. I'll go down a bit further. And then just wick away excess. This is really a trial and error phase. I can't tell you how to do this. I can show you, I'm showing you what I'm doing, but I can't tell you how to do it. It's about just learning as you go. I think if you go by the adage of less is more, then that'll give you the idea that of where I'm coming from. So when I'm wicking it away, I am taking away sort of the excess. I'm just dabbing it onto my bit of tissue. But there we go. That's done. Happy with that. I'll just give those a few minutes to dry, and we'll come back to finish the video. Okay, so through the miracles of modern technology, they're all dry, they're done. Might as well just quickly show you me putting them to the base, to the sword, to the base. So just remove them from the stand. It's probably would have been wise to paint the base in a dark brown. I would normally do that. Now these are skirmishers that are going to sit at the front of the base, but I've got a bit of PVA in there. I've got my 60 by 30 stock standard 6mm gaming base. All I'll do is just dip the base into the glue and stick them on. Now I'm not being very careful at the moment. There's going to be wiggle room. Just straighten them up because I'm using PVA. Granted this drying time, it's actually a really strong bond they make thanks to PVA. Now just excuse me one moment. Okay, a little tip there. So when I originally placed these three bases on here, they sit slightly proud. So a little tip is just for the middle base, just clip that excess metal off. And there you go, it's absolutely... So I'll just clip the very ends. Of those bases. So it might be a mil, it might not even be a mil. But it just allows that. I'll do the same here just for you to see. Just a pair of snippers. It just gives you that extra. Just taking somebody's eye out with that. It just gives you that extra bit of wiggle room. you're sticking them to the base, because although they are they're normally a 20mm frontage, it can be 21mm, and if that's times by 3, that's 3mm extra base, and the MDF is cut to the tolerance of a 60mm. So it does pay just to give yourself that extra bit of wiggle room. I don't butt these up completely. I get them as close as I can. I'll just shove these back a bit, I think. Because I do need to fit a rank of skirmishers on there. There we go. That's better. The command base and the last base, and because I've just nipped off the ends of those middle stands there, it just gives you that little bit of manoeuvrability. Because there's that excess glue there, I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a sec. I have to be a perfect line, of course. In fact, a little bit of a wiggle just makes it look that bit more natural. But by using the PVA, as I've said, it just gives you that, sliding all over the place, it gives you that bit of extra time before you commit to the final position. You just have to be aware of that bit of sliding around. So here we go. I'm going to snip the 4 skirmishers off the base. Just trim down there. Iron base. Nobody's getting hurt by these ricochets, I can assure you. I'm not entirely sure where the bits are going. Nobody's getting hurt. Right, okay. So there we go. There we go. Okay, happier with that now. So again, just get the old figure, stick them in the PVA, plonk him on. Now there's 2 firers and there's 2 loaders. The firers have obviously got the musket protruding, and you don't want that sticking over the edge of the base, so just make sure he's positioned sufficiently far back. Now I might as well continue with this base. You lucky people are getting your money's worth here, because I might as well just carry on with the basing. So I've got a very old brush here that's way past its sell-by date. In fact, it is really just now a stick. And I'm just painting the old PVA on here. I'd always make sure I get a little bit in between the base and the figure. I shouldn't really do this at this point. I should be waiting for the figures themselves to have stuck to the base, but I'm eager. I'm an eager beaver wanting to please you. and just show you this process really from undercoat to baste. So I'm just walloping PVA all over this base. Now this will necessitate a slight break in proceedings, obviously, because once the sand is on here, then I will have to wait for that to dry. But I'll try and put the PVA on relatively thick, because then it will assist in blending the base of the standard figures into the sand. Again, I'll just try and get a little bit in between each figure. Very careful not to get any sand on the figures themselves. But we're just by sticking it on relatively thick. This MDF's really hard wear, it's not going to warp. It lets the sand sink into the PVA and create really strong grip. Now I've got this sand here, it's brown. I think it's actually aquarium sand. It's not the one I normally use. I normally use normal coloured sand. I did have the idea that using brown sand would assist me in without having to put a wash on it, but I will be putting a wash on now. Okay, let's look. So that's the sand on the base. Always just clean excess sand away from the edge. You don't want sand there. Now you'll see there's a little gap there where PVA hasn't taken or whatever. I'm not worried about that, because there's going to be static grass, and I may even put a little bit of a clump there, but there you go. Looking pretty good already, I think. Another Union Brigade ready to fight at Antietam. Obviously a couple of flags needed. There you go. And I'll come back and finish the base once that's dry. Okay, so I've left that to dry for a little while now, and I'm just going to... This is essentially the Baccus basing technique. You might say, why am I... Sorry about that, my daughter's just going out for a sleepover. So this is essentially the Baccus basing technique. You might say, why am I painting... Why am I washing brown sand with a brown ink? Well, it does just help to bring it all together. Helps to just seal. You can see there, actually, that's an example of how the sand has helped to level out the base, as it were. Now this bit down here, down the middle, it's a case of just getting your brush and just one confident sweep down there, and I rarely have any issues. I mean, it's brown ink, so if any brown ink gets onto the figures, well, it's just a bit more weathering, I suppose. They're looking all right. Whilst I was waiting for them to dry, I painted up the ACW Militia 2 units. So I just bought one pack as a bit of a test, really. Let's see what I thought of them. So that's all 4 units painted now. I've got 2 already done. But as soon as the cart opens, the shopping cart, then I will invest in some of that. Okay, I'm going to leave that now. This video's gone on far too long, but I'll do another video and just show you the end result of these. So hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.